Hi, I hope you are doing well. This is week 2, the second installment for our series, A Question of Faith. And if this looks or sounds a little bit different to perhaps what you're used to from our core message series, that's because I'm on Zoom. And again, if you've watched week 1, you will know why that is. But over this series, we have 8 questions from kind of responses from our summer evangelism survey. So from speaking to you, some things that you have said would help you follow Jesus, build community. And we want to think about some prayer and some practical application in this series as well. So I have had 8 conversations with people in this series around 8 questions from that survey, from that idea, and hopefully it's helping you, hopefully hearing some other people's opinion and thoughts and ideas, and from where they have been in their relationship with Jesus and with community and what's important to them is helping you think about these things. And so we move on, as you will hear in the conversation. This is week 2. So how do I engage with difficult questions? And Sarah and Helly are going to share some thoughts with us. We're going to listen into that conversation now, and then I will pop back again at the end and speak to us about what we want to do about that. How do we apply the things that are real and important to our faith? So engage with the conversation, listen into that, and I'll pop back when we're done. Welcome to another week of A Question of Faith. This is the second week in this series. If you have missed the first one, go and find it. It will be on a playlist somewhere. But the first one was the start of this conversation with Helly from Ramsey Elim Community Church and Sarah from Peel Elim Community Church. And we talked about how do I make disciples. And so a continuation of that thought is, if you have connected with somebody and you've started to share your adventure and journey with Jesus with them, you're quite quickly going to encounter some things that are hard to navigate and difficult to work with. So our question for week 2 is, how do I engage with difficult questions? So if you've ever shared any amount of time with a human being at a party that they don't want to be at, once you've got through the weather chat and the awful things, you eventually stumble into something that you go, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure, I need to think about that. And so we want to continue our conversation to help us as communities think about these ideas, these thoughts in this discipleship process. And more specifically for this week, how do I engage with difficult questions? So whoever wants to go first, that would be great. Share some of your thoughts, some of your ideas, and let's see where we end up.
I think it's one of them, isn't it, where like, what is a difficult question is like the first thing, isn't it? You know, but I think like you said, whenever we start chatting with people, I think the hardest questions for me are maybe ones that I've not thought about, and then you have to think like, oh, you get a bit caught off guard almost. And I think in those moments, it's fine to say that you don't know, and I think it's okay for us to not have all the answers all the time, and for us to learn from people as well and ask, well, oh, I'm not sure, but what do you think about that? And let me think about it a bit more, or research it a bit, or chat it through with other people. I think sometimes we feel like under pressure in that moment to give like a really good, well thought out answer. And if we generally don't know, you just don't know, and it's fine.
Yeah.
So I think that's like the starting point for me. Is like, have you thought about it? Because if you haven't thought about it, then like, don't pretend that you have thought about it and then get yourself in a massive muddle about it.
Yeah, I think that is a good point. And I think, I don't know about you guys, but like, I still have questions. So and I think there are. It's this classic thing, isn't it, where I think we are expected to know the answer to everything, but then in the same breath, we all collectively like to say things like, God is so mysterious, and and so we're not gonna have all the answers, and I still have questions. And I think as long as you're honest with people and you answer what you can, and you can come back to them, you can ask people who are wiser than you, for some information. Explore, if it's a question you haven't thought of, explore both sides, see what you think, see if there's any definite answer in the Bible, or is it one of these ones that, you know, people even who believe the same thing don't necessarily agree with. So what do you think? You know, those sorts of things. I think it's quite questions are really good and should be encouraged, and we should all be asking them and answering them, and I think but difficult ones, you know, not everyone's favorite, are they? They are difficult sometimes.
Why do you think that is? There's the obvious things of feeling underprepared, and you don't want to look daft, and you know, all those types of things. But why do you think specifically? Because I believe it's a consistent issue within our faith, our tradition, what we do. I don't think it's something that we are particularly that comfortable or skilled at doing, engaging with the people with these things. Why do you think that is? Why do you think we struggle with engaging with difficult questions?
I think maybe, especially for those of us who've been following Jesus for a while and have been through various different kind of eras within Christianity, I think there have been times when maybe questions weren't welcomed as well as they would be today, and when maybe there was quite a strong emphasis that there's only one way to think about everything, and that if you think the wrong way, then that's bad news for you, basically. So I think in kind of recent years, you know, we've started to be a bit more accepting of the fact that, you know, even though, like Sarah just alluded to in the Bible, you know, even though we might all believe it and see it as God breathed and inspired, there might still be parts in it where even people with, you know, ridiculous amounts of knowledge about it won't necessarily agree on the interpretation, or will take a slightly different stand. And it's not to say that you know, that's a bad thing. I think it's more to say it's actually okay to have different opinions, and it's all right to consider things from different angles and to find Jesus within it. I think for me, kind of going back to thinking about difficult questions and why it's hard, I think sometimes, even though it is hard, I think the character of Jesus is the thing that I try to go back to in it.
That's great.
And think, you know, for one, how would he treat that person? And also two, if I'm not sure and I'm pondering on a question or thinking about, you know, different angles on a topic, I try to think about who Jesus is and what he examples and what he would likely do.
That's really good. Yeah, that's great.
I think I mean, I think sometimes as well people don't like the difficult questions because people don't want to look stupid, do they? People take things very, very personally. Some people, not everyone. I think in order to answer questions well, you need to be quite open-minded, not that you're willing to be swayed in what you think, but that you're willing to understand other people's viewpoint and communicate yours well, but also not be super sensitive and take things personally if people ask another question even though you've answered them, because you know it makes sense to you because you already know and you understand, but it might not make sense to the other person, or it might lead on to another question. And I think people are then like, oh, you're just trying to make me look stupid, or, you know, it could be anything. But I think it's that awareness of, I guess, like you're saying, Helly, about making sure our character is still like Jesus as well, because, you know, it's not about us personally, like, and it's not insulting our intelligence, or like people are curious, people just want to know. And especially in kind of people like, you know, with not sounding old and everything, but like with internet and like so much resource and so much libraries, and you know, people have knowledge at their fingertips, and I think people expect to have that conversation to understand deeper. Does that make sense? Not just like, oh, I don't know, but you know, God is enough. You know, people want answers. They don't just want like a wishy-washy, like, oh, it's fine. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
so speak to that for a little minute, because I think that within our tradition could be better. I think we we maybe have gone through, as I think, what if I understood what Helly was alluding to before, that some of our times in our history have been stronger than others at how we've engaged with questions, and we come from, if you think the last, so maybe not decades, but you think centuries, millennia of our shared experience of following Jesus. We come from a tradition that has a very strong heritage of engaging with difficult questions and leading culture in response to difficult questions. But I think in our maybe lived memory, the recent decades, there's maybe been some ways and moments that we have led and engaged with some things, and we hopefully, not you all, but we definitely have kind of these memories that still make your stomach drop, of being sent out to go knock on people's doors, and you've got an answer sheet, and you've got a, you know, and we have Billy Graham to inquire and ask and maybe thank in inverted box quotes for the idea of, if you get hit by a bus tonight, where are you going to end up? And and that has created, we understand the intention of where it comes from, but that has created this environment where we respond in quotes and in cliches. And I just wonder, because I am a walking quote and cliche, but as a professional communicator, and so I was thinking about, do people want an answer, or do people want an appointment? Do they want you to give a clipped soundbite? Do they want you to give a, well, he works in mysterious ways, or do they want an invitation into your following of Jesus? I understand it's not as clear and as obvious always as that. It's not as clean necessarily as that, but I think speak to, if you have some thoughts on this changing cultural idea of maybe leading less with giving people an answer and a clipped kind of cliche, and maybe being aware of an invitation to an appointment, and that exchange of, as you both said, ideas, being open-minded, being receptive to where you find people. But can you speak to that changing culture and how we engage with difficult questions a little bit?
Yeah, I think there's a definite shift in how we're thinking about it now, and how, like you said, we maybe place less emphasis on just providing people with, like, you know, ready thought out, like, well, this is what it is. And, you know, we're seeing the value now in people exploring those ideas and coming to those conclusions themselves. I think there are some things that we can answer based on our experience or what we do know. I think it's a situational thing, depends on the question. But some questions, I think, you know, there isn't a clear answer to, but we can encourage people to engage in conversation about it. We can point people to resources like around it. We can pray about it. We can, you know, kind of get into this ongoing process. It kind of goes back to what we talked about when we talked about discipleship, that it's often not like a one-off thing, and like, oh, I've asked it, oh, now I've got the answer. It might be that person watches how we respond over time. It might be that they visit that same thought or that same question with us as they go through their own process with Jesus. And it's the same with us, isn't it? Like, at least for me, with questions, is that, you know, I come up with a question, and then, you know, at some point I feel my curiosity is satisfied, and then 6 months later, a year later, 10 years later, same question's like, oh, but what about that bit? You know, so I think we should never presume that we've, you know, we are the finished article in our own thought processes either, and neither is anybody else. So it's okay to go on a journey.
Yeah, it's really good.
That is really good. That's really important. Yeah. And I think as well, like in kind of what you were saying, Johnny, about what does the person actually want out of it? Do they want something cliche? I think, like you say, throughout some years, it wasn't encouraged to ask questions. And I think it was heavy on the charismatic, in a sense of, come and feel good and don't worry about that, we'll answer that another time, because this is, you know, and it was almost like not as valued as important, if that makes sense. I think maybe that's kind of
that's the quote of the time, isn't it? The problem with the evangelical mind is that there isn't one. That's not true, by the way, but that's that was the you know, representative of a phase of our history, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what came to mind when you were talking just before about how that, was about that and how you felt, rather than asking the questions and finding out the knowledge and the information kind of thing. So
right.
I
think, I'm sorry speaking over you there, but I think I just want to pick up the tail of that, because I think often we can be nervous about engaging with people, and we never get to the awkward or the difficult questions because we've been conditioned to expect to be attacked. And we've been conditioned and pre-programmed to assume that everybody hates us, that they think what we believe is ridiculous, that somehow, some way that we're unaware of, everybody is issued this list of questions that will flummox a follower of Jesus, and they have no answer to give, and they, you'll be able to get them, and then they look ridiculous, and they have to leave town in shame forever. And I think the thing that I want to encourage us with, and for people connecting with this communication, is that I think what the question is doing, as difficult as you might perceive it to be in your reception of it, it's telling you something about the asker. It's telling you something about their journey. As cliche, we need to stop saying things like that, but it's telling you something about the person. It's telling you where their mind is. It's telling you where their heart is. It's communicating something of their soul, of their, there are the practical elements of what we're doing, but we're talking specifically about when you get into those questions of why do bad things happen to good people? Why isn't the will of God for me to have millions and millions and millions of pounds and perfect health and no tension in my life and the promotion and the car and the house and the, all that? Why isn't that the will of God for my life? And it's telling you, I believe it's an invitation that somebody is giving you, wrapped in a question, for you to kind of have a position of influence and by association privilege and authority into their existence. What do you feel about that, and about our culture of engaging with people, and how do we move from a position of being afraid of people asking us things that maybe we don't know the answer to? I think we've done a really good job at helping people feel confident to say, I might not know the answer. I think culturally we've created an opportunity for people to say, I don't know, but I'm happy to find out, or let's discover together. So, which I think is great. But so what's the progression of that? How do we accept the invitation to people's existence wrapped in their difficult questions?
I think it's really crucial maybe how we answer them as well. Like you say, maybe we're good at saying we don't know the answer, but sometimes things that would encourage people who already believe in Jesus would be really not encouraging or helpful to somebody who doesn't.
Right. So great.
Things like if someone asks something and it's a difficult question, like, why does someone get really horrible disease, or whatever the question is, and you say something like, well, God uses bad things and he turns them for good. Like, that might not be comforting to someone who's had to watch their family member die of cancer, or leave an abusive relationship, or whatever. That's, I would be thinking, I'm not being rude, but why does your God need me to go through absolute torment and horrible things in order for him to look good? I think we need to be careful or aware, sensitive how we communicate things. And again, it's that whole thing, like we kind of covered in the discipleship thing, about it being bespoke to who you're talking to, because I think if you know somebody well, you can maybe say things that you wouldn't say to people who you don't know as well. If you're having the conversation, because even people who believe in Jesus ask difficult questions, can be trying to figure it out. And I think the way that you would answer to somebody who already has that frame of reference would maybe be really different to someone else.
I'm going to jump in before I give Helly an opportunity to speak, because I want to give people who may be connecting with this communication some clarity, and also some like kind of positive from that, because I don't disagree with you at all, but I think if I'm correct in what I believe I've heard you saying, it's not that we avoid answering the question, or that we don't tell people that God is good, God is faithful, God is our provision, that Jesus is our everything. That's not what we're saying, but being aware of somebody who has a relationship with Jesus needs a different conversation with somebody who isn't. And so for me now, somebody who isn't a follower of Jesus, who is articulating these frustrations or these things, that to me now is this sensitively, which is what you're saying, and appropriately, which is what you're saying. But this now is an enormous open opportunity to introduce the gospel to somebody.
Yeah.
Because Jesus has things to say from his experience about pain, about being neglected, about being abused, about not getting what he deserved, about, you know, so this for me is like, wow. So now how do I switch my brain on and away from being threatened or the false sense of persecution or attacked, or like going, I don't know why bad things happen to good, I don't know. But now I switch into a frame of a mindset where I go, well, actually, I follow, I love, and I serve one who has experienced that. And while I can't speak to that or the specifics necessarily, what I can do is love you well in response to your difficulty and point you to one who has experienced that and does know that. And it's these massive gospel opportunities. I'm not trying to add pressure on people, and I'm not saying you give people a 3-point, you know, preach every time something bad happens, but if we can shift our mentality from the church is being persecuted again because people want to know why God hasn't given them whatever, or I'm being attacked, or I'm being misunderstood, or I'm being, if we could shift that mindset into pain. Jesus has lots and lots and lots of things to say about pain. Sickness, Jesus has lots and lots and lots of things to say about sickness. The redemption, the renewal, the being made whole is, if we can grab a hold of those themes and those ideas and transplant our responses from one of it being about us to ones of it being about Jesus, these difficult conversations become, or have the potential to become, Jesus and gospel conversations. And that to me is massive. And there's a huge gear shift in the way that we think about those things. But I just wanted to
I maybe didn't articulate it that well. I didn't mean, obviously we absolutely say God is good and all those things. It's not what we're saying, it's maybe how we're saying it is maybe what I was trying to say. Yeah, and I agree.
I totally agree with you.
And it is, like you say, then it is in those moments that it is a huge opportunity, because we believe in Jesus for a reason. We think he changes everything. So it's in those moments when you're broken, we can speak from our experience, when that's when you are aware of him as well, and how good he is, and can communicate that well, is maybe what I was trying to say.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. We got it. Ellie?
Yeah, I think you both have covered it pretty well, but I think, like you said, in kind of trying to communicate Jesus to people and deal with people rather than just the question in itself, I think asking them more questions, not in like an accusatory manner, like, oh, why are you asking that, you know, but like I think it's good to like investigate what it is that is driving those questions, like you said, and you know, kind of taking a genuine interest. I also find that it's, you know, maybe I'm just nosy, but I genuinely find it interesting to find out what they think. You know, so like even if it is like, you know, something kind of random, you know, I love to find out like what it is that they have already thought about it, and they might present it as a question, but they probably already have some ideas or thoughts or like perception or assumption about it. And I feel like sometimes, especially when it feels like it's a bit like, just like we said, we think everything's always aggressive, and it's not. And I think sometimes when it comes across like that, it's because there's like pain attached to the question, and you know, it's like they've been hurt by church before, or they've you know, like they have had a difficult experience, or they've read something and maybe got the wrong end of the stick on it, or do you see what I mean? So sometimes when things come across a little bit like we're a bit instead of kind of expecting that this is, you know, war now, getting into why is this person hurting, and you know, like I said kind of earlier, what would, as cliche as it is, what would Jesus do, or like how would Jesus respond to that person and their pain, rather than, you know, feeling threatened. I think fear is the issue, isn't it, oftentimes when it comes to this stuff. You know, so I think it's just being aware of it and, you know, grabbing a hold of the moment, like you said, turning it around.
Great. Really good. We are at time. This is something that I've feel we could talk about for a bit longer, but we're at time. So is there anything, again, that you feel we haven't touched on or got into, and maybe more specifically through a practical lens? Again, talking about an idea is great and important, and we need to do that, but the practical application of that. So anything that perhaps you feel we haven't touched on, talked about from a practical point of view, about how do I engage with difficult questions?
I think the only other thing I would say is get informed, read, explore things, develop your own thinking, and just like Sarah said, look at things from different angles, different points of view. So when you encounter them, it doesn't feel also unfamiliar then, and you are more equipped to have a good conversation rather than if you've not done that.
Yeah, it's nothing worse than being boring, is there? Like having nothing to add to the conversation. Yeah, that's good. Sarah?
Yeah, I think that is really important. Think about what questions you're thinking about as well, and again, read around it, find answers, chat with other people, and respect other people who are asking you the questions. Like we've kind of spoken about, explore it with them. What is that the actual question that they're asking? Is there something else they mean to ask? Are they articulating it well? Are you articulating it well? Respecting what they think as well as you explore that with them. And I think just being okay with either knowing an answer or not knowing an answer or having more questions. I think being okay with that as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And I want to encourage you both and people watching this communication in Matthew 21 and Matthew 22, so 2 chapters towards the end of Matthew's gospel. We kind of see some of these responses from Jesus, and the 3 A's, because of course they are. So how do I engage with difficult questions? You can answer it, you can avoid it, or you can ask your own question. And so I would encourage you to read Matthew 21, Matthew 22 through that mindset, looking at that idea, looking at, does Jesus answer the question? Does Jesus avoid the question? Or does Jesus ask the question in response to a question? And I think that teaches us a lot about how we engage with difficult questions and what is going on. So we're out of time, so we will wrap that up. Thank you both very much for your time, for your contribution. We have some more to come in this series. There will be different people coming to hang out with me and answer some of these questions and get into this stuff. But yeah, it's been great. I really appreciate that. That's been really helpful for me. I'm confident that'll be helpful for other people too. Be brilliant. Have a great week, and we will see you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed that. Again, you're going to hear a lot of this from me, but I enjoyed filming that. I really value hearing other people's voices in our community and giving us those points of connection and contribution. And again, as I started, we want to think about, what do we do about this stuff? The practical application of our faith is massively important, and something that we want to work on, and we want to be deliberate about, and we want to encourage each other with. And so we're thinking about, how do I engage with difficult questions? So our application this week is encouragement to go and discover some things about maybe something within your faith that you're a bit nervous about. Go and do some reading or some investigating, or ask some questions, or get around it, but explore a faith topic that you don't feel 100% confident in, or that you don't have all of the answers to, and go and spend some time exploring that. And if you want help with resources or ideas, or how to connect with some things that make you nervous, get in touch or speak to me or core teams or people around you. But go and explore a faith topic that makes you a little bit nervous, a little bit uncomfortable, and dive into that and see what you can find, and see how that points you to Jesus, how that helps you build community and share some of that with us. Again, there will be some follow-up and some feedback to come from this core message. If you don't receive those communications and you would like to, please get in touch, reach out to me, and I would love to send those to you. And we want to hear how you get on. We want to hear how you get on, not just processing the conversation, but in the application as well. So how you get on and exploring maybe that element, that thought, that idea within your faith that makes you a little bit nervous to go and find out a little bit more, and then see how that helps you find and follow Jesus. Be brilliant, and we'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.